You're sitting by a fire. It is 50,000 years ago. You just finished eating. A piece of meat is stuck between your teeth. There is no sink to rinse your mouth, no bathroom down the hall, no little tube of paste waiting for you in the morning. You run your tongue over your teeth anyway. They feel rough, a little gritty, but they are still there, all of them. No toothbrush exists yet. No dentist is waiting nearby if something goes wrong. Just you, your teeth, and hundreds of thousands of years still ahead of you. And somehow, you are going to be fine. Here's the thing nobody tells you about ancient teeth. A lot of the time, they were in better shape than yours. Most people picture cavemen with black stumps for teeth, broken smiles, constant pain. That picture is wrong. When scientists dig up skeletons from before farming began, they often find clean, strong teeth. Not perfect teeth, but strong ones. The real story is stranger than the myth. Ancient humans did not need a toothbrush because they were not eating the things that ruin teeth in the first place. Their food did most of the work for them every single day without anyone trying. Then something changed. Farming arrived, bread arrived, soft food arrived, and slowly, then all at once, the very same mouths that had stayed healthy for hundreds of thousands of years started falling apart. So this isn't really a story about brushes and paste. It's a story about what people put in their mouths and what that food does once it gets there. Once you see that pattern clearly, you will never look at your own toothbrush the same way again. Here's what the evidence actually shows. Some studies looking at skeletons from hunter-gatherer groups, the people who live by hunting animals and gathering wild plants, found cavities in only about 2 out of every 100 teeth. That is a tiny number. Now compare that to farming groups that came later. In some of those study groups, nearly half of all teeth had some kind of decay. Half. That is a massive jump. And here is the part that should stop you for a second. Toothbrushes did not exist for either group. Neither one had a brush. So something else caused that huge difference. The answer is food. Hunter-gatherers ate meat, fish, nuts, roots, wild fruit and tough, fibrous plants. None of it was soft, none of it was sugary or sticky. To eat it, you had to chew hard for a long time. That heavy chewing scraped the teeth clean, almost like a natural brush rubbing against the surface. Chewing also makes your mouth produce more spit, and spit washes food particles off your teeth and keeps the chemistry in your mouth balanced. Then, about 10,000 years ago, farming began. Grain got turned into bread and porridge. And here is the key part. When you eat starchy food like bread, your own saliva starts breaking it down into sugar right there in your mouth. That sugar feeds bacteria, tiny organisms living on your teeth. Those bacteria produce acid, and that acid slowly eats away at the tooth. That is the real reason farming populations had so many more cavities than hunter-gatherers. It was never bad luck, it was food. But ancient humans were not completely defenseless either. Around 3,500 years ago in ancient Babylon, in what is now Iraq, people were already chewing the end of a small twig until it went soft and frayed, almost like a tiny brush, then rubbing that frayed end against their teeth. One tree became so useful for this that people still call it the toothbrush tree today. Scientists have studied its wood and found it naturally contains substances that fight the bacteria behind tooth decay and gum disease. People who had never heard the word bacteria had somehow found a stick that fought bacteria anyway. They just knew it worked. Around 5,000 years ago, ancient Egyptians were mixing something that looks a lot like early toothpaste. Archaeologists actually found the recipe written down. Crushed ox hooves burned into ash, tree resin, crushed eggshells, and a rough volcanic rock called pumice. Rubbed onto the teeth, it worked a bit like sandpaper, scraping buildup away. It probably tasted awful, but it worked, in a basic way, thousands of years before modern dentistry existed. That is the evidence. Diet did the heavy lifting. Simple tools filled in the gaps. And somehow, it was enough. Let me throw something at you that might sound wild. What if the toothbrush itself gets way more credit than it deserves? Some dental researchers now argue that the sharp drop in tooth decay across the last 100 years had less to do with bristles and more to do with two other things: fluoride, a mineral added to water, and toothpaste that strengthens teeth, and changes in diet during certain periods. Brushing helps, Nobody is saying it doesn't, but the story that a plastic stick alone saved modern teeth may be simpler than the truth. I'm not saying brushing is pointless, but the evidence points somewhere more uncomfortable. The tool got the credit and the food got ignored. Here's a second wild idea, and this one is even stranger. Some researchers who study ancient skulls have noticed something odd. Ancient hunter-gatherer jaws were almost always big enough to fit every tooth, including the back molars, with plenty of room to spare. Wisdom teeth rarely caused problems. Crowded, crooked teeth were rare too. Modern jaws are different. Millions of people today need their wisdom teeth removed because there simply is not enough room for them. Millions more wear braces to fix crowding that never used to be this common. One theory researchers have proposed is that soft modern food that barely needs any chewing at all, gives the jaw less work to do while it's still growing in childhood. Less chewing work may mean a jaw that grows smaller than it used to. If that theory holds up, it means the hard, tough, chewy diet ancient humans were stuck with wasn't just cleaning their teeth. It might have been shaping the entire size and structure of their jaw and face, generation after generation. Something as simple as how much effort it takes to eat dinner may have been quietly steering human evolution the whole time. That is still being studied, and not every scientist agrees on how big the effect really is. But the pattern in the skulls is hard to ignore. Different ancient cultures approach this problem in wildly different ways, often with zero contact with each other. In Babylon, it was the chew stick, a twig chewed soft at one end and rubbed against the teeth like a brush. In Egypt, it was a gritty homemade paste of ash, resin, crushed eggshell, and volcanic rock, scrubbed on with a finger. In ancient Rome, people used something you would never guess: urine. It sounds disgusting, and it is. But urine contains a chemical called ammonia, a natural cleaning agent that can actually help whiten teeth and kill some of the bacteria in the mouth. It wasn't a random or crazy idea. It was based on something that genuinely works, even though nobody at the time understood the chemistry behind it. And in a site called Mehrgarh in what is now Pakistan, archaeologists found something that stops most people cold: human teeth with small, neat holes drilled into them on purpose using tools tipped with a hard stone called flint. That dental work is about 9,000 years old. Someone, thousands of years before writing was even invented, sat down, held a sharp stone tool steady, and drilled into another person's tooth to deal with decay. No pain relief, no numbing, just steady hands and whatever the other person could bear. What's fascinating is that despite having zero contact with each other, cultures on completely different continents kept landing on the same basic idea: scrub something rough against the teeth and use whatever natural chemistry was available to fight the bacteria. Nobody knew the word bacteria existed, they just knew what worked, and they passed it down. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. A cavity today means a trip to the dentist, some discomfort, maybe a filling. In the ancient world, a bad tooth could be far more dangerous than that. A tooth infection, left untreated, can spread. It can move from the tooth into the jaw, then into the bloodstream. Once an infection is in the blood, it can spread through the entire body and kill you. Before modern medicine, there was no way to stop that chain once it started. Archaeologists studying ancient skeletons have found direct evidence of this. Some skulls show clear signs of severe, long-term dental infection, abscesses that had eaten right through the bone. For someone living tens of thousands of years ago, a rotten tooth wasn't just painful. It could be the beginning of the end. That is part of why the drilling at Mehrgarh mattered so much. Drilling out decay with a sharp stone, painful and brutal as it sounds, was sometimes the difference between living and dying. It wasn't dentistry for the sake of a nice smile, it was survival. Think about what that means for you personally. You are sitting here right now because a long, unbroken line of ancestors survived long enough to have children, who survived long enough to have children, all the way down to you. Some of those ancestors almost certainly had rotten teeth at some point in their lives. Some of them got lucky, some of them got the infection drilled out in time, and some people in their communities did not survive it at all. You are, in a very real sense, descended from the ones whose teeth held together just long enough. So why does any of this matter now? Because that ancient instinct, chewing hard, tough food to keep your teeth clean, has almost completely disappeared from modern life. And the numbers show it. Right now, dental cavities are one of the most common health problems on the entire planet, affecting billions of people. Billions. And this is happening in a world absolutely packed with toothbrushes, toothpaste, mouthwash, fluoride, and dentists on nearly every street corner. That should not be possible if the toothbrush alone were doing all the work. But it is possible because modern diets are loaded with sugar, not just in sweets and fizzy drinks, but hidden inside bread, sauces, cereal, and almost every processed food on the shelf. That sugar feeds the exact same bacteria it always has. And no amount of brushing fully cancels out a diet that keeps feeding that bacteria all day long. There's a strange twist hiding in all of this too. Remember that ancient chew stick from Babylon? It never actually disappeared. Today, it's called a miswak, and it is still used by an estimated hundreds of millions of people around the world, mostly across Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia, as their main way of cleaning their teeth. An idea that started at least 3,500 years ago is still being used today by more people than you might expect, quietly outlasting entire empires. So in a strange way, the ancient hunter-gatherer eating tough meat and wild plants with zero access to a toothbrush may have actually been giving their teeth an easier time than a lot of modern people do, brush or no brush. So picture that same fire again. 50,000 years ago, you sitting there, tongue running over teeth that are rough, gritty, but still whole. You didn't know the word bacteria. You didn't understand acid or sugar or why chewing tough meat for an hour was quietly protecting you. You just lived. You just ate what was in front of you, and somehow that was enough to carry your teeth and eventually you all the way to right now. Next time you're standing at the sink, brushing your teeth in under 2 minutes without a second thought, remember what you're really holding. Not just a tool, a very new tool, doing a job that food and effort handled alone for hundreds of thousands of years before it. Somewhere behind you, in the long line of people who led to you being alive right now, there's an ancestor who kept their teeth in decent shape using a twig from a tree, a paste made from ash and eggshell, and sheer stubborn effort. No brush, no paste, no dentist, just knowledge passed down one mouth at a time. That knowledge is still in you. It's just been waiting for a reason to be remembered.